Hello, and welcome to the Hidden Archives. I'm your host for the evening, Phillip Clark. Before we proceed to the next part of the episode, I wanted to get our content and trigger warning out of the way. Anything that follows this point may contain real-life content and ideas that are disturbing to some listeners. If me saying this makes you uneasy, please turn this episode off now, as a more clear trigger warning will follow in just a few moments. The following episode deals strongly with concepts of non-fictional death and will contain themes of depression and addiction. So, if you choose to enter the Hidden Archives, if you choose to study the tomes, if you choose to take this journey with me, you do so at your own risk. Disturbing content will follow. This is your warning. This special episode is a bit shorter and different in general to our usual offerings. I hope you picked up on that when you heard my voice instead of Nicole's. I want to explain why I've made this temporary change to our regularly scheduled program, and why things have been the way they have been from the sudden end of Season 4 until now. To be honest, the last 2 or 3 years have been rough for me. You may have picked up on certain themes reflecting this in several of the episodes released around this time. Themes of obsession, depression, addiction, and anger. To put it plainly, I tend to express myself through my writing, but I also write about what I see in order to make sense of the world. The last 2 years have brought with them a lot of stress, including a major career change for myself, mental health struggles, and a lot of death. Too much death. At times, I've felt like my world is crumbling around me. It took almost the whole 2 years I was absent of going to therapy in order to get to the point where I had the motivation to even write again. When I thought I finally had that motivation, several family members and friends unexpectedly passed away. Well, I hate that term, passed away. They died. 2 of these people died from complications resulting from addiction, and the others, they just died. It all seemed so pointless, and it was just one after another. To be blunt, I lost my motivation. I was stressed, depressed, and anxious all the time. And all the death was compounded with the struggles of everyday routines. Building a new career from the ground up, maintaining relationships with those that remained, always looking for meaning in the chaos. I didn't just lose motivation, I lost my passion. It's been a struggle to rebuild things. I thought that I had finally made progress, and then I got hit with the most recent bombshell. My best friend of 20-odd years died unexpectedly 2 weeks after my grandfather died, and only 4 months after another mutual friend from high school. These 3 so close together. 1, a family member by blood, and 2, chosen brothers. Losing these 3 people so unexpectedly and so close together was a major blow to me. My 2 high school friends were major influences on this show. I developed many of the story ideas you hear with one of them. With the help and support of the other, I was able to develop into an almost passable actor and presenter. And my grandfather was a major inspiration for me to move these stories from a printed anthology on Amazon to the audio program it is now. I can confidently say that this show would never have existed without these 3 people. And then I lost them. All of them. my inspiration, my motivation, my coaching. And the worst part was the themes and the stories that I write. My 2 high school friends died as a result from complications of addiction. If these people inspired me, helped me to write on these themes, how come these stories and morals didn't help them? What'd I do wrong? And if I turn this into an audio program because one individual inspired me to, because he couldn't see to read anymore, what would be the point in continuing if he wasn't here to listen? I had to wrestle with this. I had to make it make sense. I had to step away from the computer, away from the recording booth, and away from all of our usual haunts. I felt like their absence caused me to have to take a leave of my own because I just didn't want to do it anymore. It seemed pointless. In my time away, and in the long stretches between episode releases and writing, I came to the conclusion that there was a purpose in this. This is my art, after all. And I firmly believe that art must have utility. Critics will disagree, but will they disagree with the likes of Bob Dylan, Pablo Picasso, or Upton Sinclair? Of course, there was a lot of soul-searching I had to do, and am still doing. Fortunately, I've learned some coping skills. It hasn't been easy, but I've gotten to the point where I'm able to work through the loss. For this, I cannot thank therapy enough. So, now that you have the background, I want to give you the context to explain what tonight's story really is. As the title implies, it is, in a way, a eulogy to my grandfather and to my 2 deceased friends from high school. I wanted their stories to be told. These people had so much in common. They were intelligent, compassionate, and patient. And they enjoyed a good story. I firmly believe that we only regret things that we actively choose not to learn from. After all, you can't change the past. But if you learn from it, you can have a profound impact on the future. Yes, things happen that are unfortunate or even painful, but to call them regrettable might imply that we took an action out of malice or indifference that, in hindsight, we wish we had done differently. But how often does one actually act out of malice towards those whom we truly care about? I would venture a guess to say that we wouldn't consciously do such things. Unconsciously, however, is something else altogether. But this isn't regrettable. It's just unfortunate. Learn from the past and make more conscious decisions in the future. Tonight's story, titled Being and Becoming, a Eulogy, is a mostly non-fictional narrative intended to bring honor to the deceased. It is an effort to be more conscious in one's own actions. I had planned to call you, I really did. I wanted to tell you so much, but there is always going to be time. I wanted to hear the things you wanted to tell me, but again, there was always going to be time. You could have also reached out to me, but you didn't. Wasn't there time? Where did all the time go anyway? After all, we'd shared so much already. Over all these years, with everything that's happened, the things we've been through together and apart. We had so much time. And yet it was never enough. It was never going to be enough. An infinite amount would not have been enough. Because life goes on. Whether together or apart, life goes on. People change and grow. Education is earned. Career goals are achieved and dashed. And pets live and die. What we aren't there for, we share later in recollection and memory. But now, well, I guess memory is all that remains now. Now, back then, what's left? All the things we should have done, could have done, said, spoken out into the universe to somehow solidify its existence and validity. Again, what's left? Just the things that could have been. Are these regrets? I don't think so. Could have been is not the same as what has been, what is. A regret is only an idea, not to be confused with an ideal. What happened is also only an idea. Definitely not an ideal either. They both, regret and the reality of what is, are nothing more than knowledge. Lessons learned. The only difference is acceptance. It is much easier to accept things that are appealing. We can't even accept the reality in a lot of cases. Eventually, though, we do accept reality because, well, what other option is there? You can't change reality. Once something has happened, there's no going back. The only option is to form the reality of whatever happens next, based on the lessons we have already learned, both good and bad. In memory of Robert O'Neill. You are the last person that would have let me have any regrets. I owe so much of who I am to you. You were my first real friend. Your creativity and compassion are examples that I still try to follow to this day. I know a lot of people would describe a compassionate person as someone who would give you the shirt off their back. I actually saw you do this for someone just several times. Because when you had nothing else to give, you gave what you had. You encouraged me to start writing, to continue writing. Many of the stories I've written that people all around the world get to hear were written or conceptualized with you. In fact, the original story that I wrote over to write this was one that we wrote together. I didn't lose that story, though. The original remains, but I thought the concept would be better stated in this memory and this tribute. I want you to know that there is so much more I could say about you, but it would go on for far too long. Yes, there are some less than appealing details that I could throw in to make you seem more human, to give the full picture, but those things aren't you. They aren't why people knew you. They aren't how I remember you, and they aren't who you were. They were elements that helped you be human. But no human is lacking in these things. Plenty of humans are lacking in the very things that you had in spades. The good things that made up your nature. If this were one of Aesop's fables, you would have been the frog, even though I think we all identify as a scorpion at times. I hope you knew how much love there is for you, how many people you helped, affected, and saved. I hope you know the impact that you had on the world with your kindness, compassion, and creativity. Requiescat in pace. It's times like this that we often feel we have so little control, so little influence, all because we can't change the past. But this is a disservice to ourselves, to our futures. In reality, we have so much control that we aren't always sure what to do with it. For example, I had the control, the power, to call you, to hear your voice, to let you write your own story rather than writing this one. I could have learned so much more from a teacher like you. And now, I feel like I've lost that. And yet, even though I hold the pen on this tale, it is still your story. And you are still teaching me. Lessons learned. One thing I've picked up on is that the story always continues. The show must go on. And what a show it was that we put on for each other, for the world. It still continues, just with a few different players. New characters are introduced, new scenes are set, but the stage remains the same one. All the world's a stage. And all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. But when and how did you enter onto the scene? When did we move from the background to the center for our duet? And who commissioned the scene to begin with? We weren't the main characters at any point, but there were still moments in the spotlight. Many of these were improvised, not following a script. To play off of each other's energies, to have that natural chemistry, makes for the most captivating of scenes. But the curtain must close before the next act. The show must go on. Exits and entrances. I know what this must sound like. Reminiscing, lamenting, regretting. But it's just thinking and remembering. Nothing more. It isn't even doing anything. Unless thinking counts as doing. I suppose in some regard it does. When nothing else can be done, all you can do is think. Especially when one lives on only in memory. In memory of Phillip Waln. Living on in memory is not a criticism here. In fact, to be remembered is what most people strive for. As an accomplished actor and musician, I know you would understand this. And you are so fortunate to have so many people that will remember you fondly. I know I do. One thing I remember about you is that you always had a story to tell. Whether this was a narrative, a joke, a scene from a play, or an improvisation, you always had a story. I actually got my favorite joke from you. Where you learned that asinine joke, the one about the blue goo, I'll never know. But I will remember how you told that joke to a bunch of strangers once. You sat down at their table on a dare and introduced yourself before asking if they would like to hear a joke. You went all out with this one. The hand motions, the gestures, the different voices for the characters in the joke. It was like you'd rehearsed for this all your life. Then you delivered the punchline, after about 15 minutes. It wasn't even a true punchline, just a non sequitur. As soon as the deed was done, before anyone could realize what was happening, you got up from that table and walked away like nothing happened. You didn't dismiss yourself, you didn't take any questions, and you didn't offer an explanation. And boy, were they pissed. I mean, the joke doesn't even have a punchline. They did end up laughing, though, eventually. But that's the kind of person you were. You always left an impression. People remembered you. And that's why I'm going to leave it here. Don't take my brevity as meaning that I didn't care as much about you. I'm just being quick because there are people listening that knew you, and they have their own recollections that I know they would love to share. I know they would want the opportunity to make the same kind of impression that came so easily to you. Requiescat in pace. Memory moves into thought, thought moves into action, action moves into reality. In this chain, it almost seems like a thought can have a thought of its own. After all, I know that you were quite the thinker. You had so much knowledge and experience, so much capacity for action. And now you live in memory and thought. But that doesn't define you. Of all people, you would know that it's our attitudes and actions that define us. You taught me that in so many ways. And those actions that you performed have defined you as something that can never be erased from my memory. Something that can never be erased from the future because my memory of you continues to guide the actions that I will take. In this way, the thought that is you will continue to have a thought of its own. And that's part of the point. We're all constantly in a cycle of moving from being to becoming. Human beings have mastered the art of being. I think a lot of people try to merely exist. But a rock has also mastered this. A rock merely exists. But what does it mean to become? Does it mean to just continue on and see what happens? Do we even have a say in the matter? If some people just exist, what does it mean for them? Well, they can try for this all they want, but their existence will be defined as becoming something sedentary. They will have very little action that defines them because they have very little attitude to become something more. They can try all they want to continue on, and they'll see what happens. But even they will have an action to take at some point. We don't have a say in the matter on whether or not we have a say in the matter. This may sound like begging the question or circular reasoning, but that is the nature of becoming, to move out of the spiral and into the cycle. A spiral has no beginning or end, but a cycle does. However, a cycle repeats, just like the seasons of the year: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Human beings live in a series of cycles. But also, like the seasons of the year, even though the cycle repeats, it repeats as the years themselves change. One ending is just another beginning. So I'm choosing to see this as another beginning. I have that choice, and I can take that action. I believe you would make the same choice. If this is true, it means that you continue to exist in the cycle, observing every stop and start, every exit and entrance. I'm doing this because I believe we both have a story to tell. We are intrinsically linked in each other's stories, and in the stories of so many others. In memory of Larry Reedy. I could have written a book with all the stories I have about you. In fact, I still might. and I think you would have enjoyed reading it because you were always the avid reader, even when your eyesight failed. That's actually a big reason why I made this show to begin with. I wanted you, specifically, to be able to enjoy my work. I could have stuck to print, it would have been a whole lot easier, but I chose to do the extra work so that you, and others like you, would still have the ability to experience these stories. I hope you got the opportunity, I really do. But even if you didn't, I know that you lived a life full of experiences. You were never one to say no to anything that could potentially have been fun or enlightening, were you? I grew up on stories that others shared about you. I even got the opportunity to hear a few of your own stories, unfiltered and straight from the source. I would have liked to hear more, but I know that you were out living a life of experiences. It would have been a disservice to ask you to pause for a little longer just so that you could tell me one more thing. I believe that you found the key to true happiness in living such a full life. You knew that it isn't about wealth, fame, or status. Life is about experiencing all that we can, because eventually we just move into memory. So why not make those memories good ones, and make a lot of them while we can? One of the most important lessons you taught me on experiencing what life has to offer was a lesson about calculated risk. In this tale, you introduced me to new friends in a foreign country. We were all making small talk, sharing things about ourselves, our countries, our experiences. Suddenly, the topic came up about wanting to share in a particular experience, sharing a good beer with good friends. But to get this particular beer, myself and my new friend had to go on a mission of sorts. We were in a country that was not my own, and what we would have to do involved travel to a neighboring country, talking to unofficial individuals, and making a purchase from them that was not taxed, licensed, or approved by either government of either country. It was tantamount to crime. Were the risks higher than the rewards? Yeah. But there was a reward. Several hours later, we came back with our prize in hand, and we all shared it, you, me, and my new friends. I can't remember the label on the beer, but I remember the details of the adventure. You, sir, were the true Gandalf the Grey. Thanks for teaching this Bilbo Baggins what it means to leave the comfort of my shire. Requiescat in pace. As I sit here, I think of all the things I wanted to say about you, to say to you. I had planned to call you. But even though it feels like it, even though I want to, I can't say it all right now. There is too much left to say. But there will be other opportunities. I suppose I finally realize that there is a story to tell. And even though I'm the one telling it, it still belongs to you. And you will have your voice and opportunity in all that you did and all that you taught to me and the world to continue to tell your story from here on out. And when my act in this play is over, well, the show will go on. Thank you for being a player in this show. I will remember every action you have taken to teach me what I know. Your stories will continue to be told. Robert, Phillip, and Larry. I I think that any of the 3 individuals that the story is dedicated to would have a number of witty things to say about themselves. That being said, I'll reserve my own wit and refer to yet another line from William Shakespeare. Last scene of all, that ends this strange, eventful history, is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. This story is dedicated to Larry Reedy, Robert O'Neill, and Phillip Waln. May your stories continue to be told, and may you be immortalized in the hearts of all who hear them. Next time, we will return to our normal genre. I hope to bring you a new and more fictional release very soon. I think I'm back in my groove, and I've been doing a ton of writing, so there's more to come, right around the corner. There are many more stories from the hidden archives that have yet to be shared. We hope that you join us next time for another glimpse within. This has been a production of the Rhodes Collaborative Experience LLC. Please no reproduction, duplication, or bastardization of any content without the written consent from RCX or its partners. Ex animo, ex tempus, and archivum.